and he introduced me to Mark Gunyuzlu, who is the owner of Paul Davis Restoration of the Triad East, okay, because they're broken out by regions. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But Paul Davis Restoration, it is a property restoration company, experts in water damage mitigation, fire restoration, mold remediation, and they cover all aspects of emergency response and reconstruction. So imagine you have like this awful disaster that you need, like your house needs to have a lot of work done to it to remediate it and get it back to normal. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So without wasting another second, let's get Mark up here. Mark, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jay. Appreciate that. Nice to see you today.
Absolutely. You too. I'm really looking forward to this one because this is something, what you do doesn't really sound like anything anybody wants to have to go through, but you guys kind of can put on your superhero capes and save the day. So I want to, before we dive too deep, I guess we're going to dive deep right off the bat here. A client might have called you and you've gone out there, and at first glance, you were like, oh my goodness, how the heck are we going to pull this off? So what is the most dramatic before and after transformation that you've achieved for a client?
Right. Good question. I think we always strive for the same thing on every job, which is, to put something back together really better than it was before the accident occurred. But just about any fire job is a good candidate for that question because they tend to be large loss. They're not always, but they oftentimes are. And so there's a lot going on, and there are a lot of challenges. We have a job that we're nearing completion on, and it was a pretty extensive fire job. So I mean, we had to take the roof off completely off the house, and we ran into a lot of things along the way, asbestos that had to be abated and so forth, lots of things. But the thing in that one was when we got there and got started, before we got started, the homeowner's really initial concern was, hey, can I put this house back together with the insurance coverage I have? And it's one of those things when you get to large loss, you sometimes are confronted with, right? So they had a number, it was the total dwelling coverage, and that had to cover everything, the smoke remediation, the water damage, because the fire company comes in spraying water. So we had to do all of that. And then we had to put the entire property back together, and they were concerned whether it could be done. And their adjuster had suggested that they might need to bulldoze the house down, right? Of course, I got on site and I said, no, of course, there's a lot that's there that we can work with that's recoverable. And so I assured them that we could put the house back together for them better than it was with the coverage that they actually had. And so we did that. So I mentioned we took the roof off. We had to put 45 new trusses up, right? We had everything down to the wall studs inside. All the electrical had burned out because the fire was right next to the electrical panel. And we've got it all back in. They had flat laid plastic countertops. We've got quartz countertops in there now. And so it's really, really nice. And it's we don't have the final photos yet, but we're getting close to them. But it's going to be a good candidate for that question, for a really situation from where we were assuring them that we could do it to where we actually deliver the final product. Really, really rewarding.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait to see those pictures. And I think it would complement this question really well to be able to show that. So you mentioned something too about that. And I know my insurance company, my insurance guy, he had called me. This was probably about 9 months ago, and I never thought of it. And he said, we have to update your dwelling value, because if something happens, the cost of materials. And I never thought of that. I never knew that. Is that something that a lot of homeowners just don't know? And I know we didn't really talk about this question at all, but I thought that was really interesting.
Absolutely. And it's a hard number. And when something like asbestos happens, so they had ceiling texture because the house was built before 1978, where asbestos was phased out. Mm-hmm. That added like $35,000 to the job to abate the asbestos ceilings that was not anticipated. So when I said, "Oh, I'm sure we can put this house back together for you," we weren't really quite counting on that. So we had to tighten up just a little bit more, and make sure we could get everything done for them. So you should have a little bit of headway, I'd say. Also, you want to have definitely sufficient coverage to put your house back together in the event you have a total loss.
Yeah.
And so it's a number that people should be aware of.
Interesting. Yeah, that really is. And I think this kind of ties into it. I mean, that's more of like the one piece of insurance advice that you should talk about with your homeowner's insurance.
Yeah.
But if you could share just one piece of advice with any homeowner to prevent disaster related damage, what would it be and why?
Right. Great question. And it's an easy one for me to answer. It's take action. We arrive a lot of times out on a job and the people are a little bit in shock. They're stunned. They don't know what the process is. And so we have materials we bring to them to try to explain, hey, how does an insurance claim really work? How does it all fit together? And but the main thing is we try to make the homeowner aware that their primary responsibility is to take action to prevent longer term secondary damages. And examples of that could be mold growing inside your walls. There was a water loss. It's a very simple job to repair, take care of. But if a couple of weeks go by, you can have mold growing inside your walls. And all of a sudden, we've gotten from a very small job to a very complex job. And most people's insurance coverage have limitations of coverage on mold. And so in North Carolina, it's very typically limited to $5,000. And so that, or like flooring, you get water on a hardwood floor. It's very easy for us to flatten the floor if we get to it fast enough, and then to sand it and refinish it or whatever. But if you don't get onto it within 2 or 3 or 4 days, then the floor is going to cup. And now we're into tearing the floor out and putting the new floor back. And so take action, prevent further longer term damage to your home. And that means go with a company that you have confidence in that can actually do the work. And that's what we go in and we tell them, look, we're a full service restoration company. We're going to get this all taken care of for you inside your insurance coverage. We're going to work directly with your insurance adjuster. We're going to get everything taken care of. You won't have to really do anything except give us access and let us do what we're expert at. And so you want to work with a company that can do the emergency response, the repairs, handle any contents, that might be damaged, cleaning them, evaluating them, what have you, and then complete the total job.
I love that. So you brought up a good point there as far as the emergency response. How has Paul Davis Restoration's approach to emergency response evolved to meet like the changing needs of today's homeowners and the landscape that's out there today?
Sure. Great question. So Mr. Paul Davis started the company in Jacksonville, Florida in the 60s. So we're talking about when engineers went to college with slide rules, right? And we hadn't put the men on the moon yet. So we've been in this business since the advent of technology and the creation of the internet. And today, everything that we do is technology centric. So we use sophisticated software tools. All the valuation and estimating platforms are web-based, cloud-based. And so we started before there was any of that, and then we have along with that the evolution of building materials, So today we have very sophisticated building materials, very complex building materials. And so the business has changed a lot for us from, over since 1968 or 67 to where we are today. But the one thing that I think, in spite of that we really keeps us grounded is our vision, which is to provide extraordinary care while serving people in their time of need. So we have all of this technology and approach to business change, but we've stayed focused on the thing that matters most, which is the homeowner and providing extraordinary care while they go through the loss with us.
That's fantastic. And I love that. I love the embrace of the technology, but you said to provide the extraordinary care for their homeowner. Absolutely. So you're just helping set this up for me here. Can you share a story about a time when your team went above and beyond and provided that extraordinary care based beyond what was expected to help a family or a business in crisis?
Sure. Yeah. We had a fire job. We're just about finished with that job here as well. And the homeowner had put her husband in hospice care. She's an elderly lady in her 80s. He had he was dealing with, Alzheimer's, and she put him in hospice, and she had just had to move him out of the house into a hospice facility. And about, I guess, 2 days after she put him in the hospice facility, she went out to dinner with her family up in Greensboro here, and the house caught on fire. And so a neighbor called. They hustled down there. The fire company had already arrived. There was a lot of damage to the home. And then 3 or 4 days after that, her husband passed away. And the family had already had other tragedies, and so they were really a little bit paralyzed, and she didn't want to let go of anything. She couldn't get rid of any of his clothes. She didn't want to, but the house was pretty well burned up, right? So we had to really, it took a long time to talk them through the process. Before, we didn't try to push them. We said, hey, here's a work authorization. We need you to sign it before we can get started, but take your time, call me, ask any questions. I'll drive back down here and meet with you whenever you like. And we had several meetings on site, and they went with us. They trusted us to take care of them. Mm-hmm. And it's been a hand-holding process with her, because she needed somebody to really talk her through it, help her pick materials, selections. And so we have people in the office that have spent a lot of time with her on that. So it's a job where, we had to really, once again, provide extraordinary care. But in this case, we're about to finish that property, and so it's been a journey. There have been tears and shoulders cried on, and
Yeah.
But for us, so it's business, but it's also about taking care of the people that are involved in the loss.
I love that answer. I do. I really feel like it's important that we don't, especially with all the technology that's out there now, and it's important that we don't lose touch of what's really important, and that, sometimes people have a lot more going on beyond the surface of, a fire that, is devastating in its own right, but people even have more than that. And you said they had been through a bunch of tragedies, so that's really good.
They needed a trusted partner, and that's what we wanted to be. Very
good. Very good. All right, I got a couple more questions for you, Mark, and I told you it was going to go fast. I'm going to give you the chance to kind of soapbox, jump on a pedestal here for a second. So what would you say would be the most common misconception that people have about restoration services, and just that you wish they would understand?
Yeah, I think that's an easy one for me to answer also. On a lot of jobs, we have people that do what we call estimate shop. Like, they don't really know. They kind of go, I want to get about 3 or 4 estimates. Can you write up an estimate for me? And normally what happens is we can't really write the mitigation estimate until after we complete the mitigation, because we don't know how long it's going to take to dry. We don't know when we open the walls up if we're going to see mold or what's going on. So we get, and I talked earlier about the requirement to take action and get started and let us get onto the job. But the other side of that is the homeowner just has to pick somebody that they trust and can have confidence in, because we'll write an estimate. We use a standardized platform. Most of the insurance carriers use Xactimate, and it's a database driven tool where the database is updated for every zip code in the United States and Canada every month. And so if 100 people come out and write the estimate, they're going to get the exact same number, except for the scope of work, if there's differences in scope of work. So you have to go with a company that is going to write the full, complete, and accurate scope. And then, most importantly, is going to get the work done timely and to a very high quality standard. So we try to explain that. Most of the time we're successful, in talking people through that. But that's the one misconception. We basically just say, look, you just have to get started. Mm-hmm. There's no profit. It's not a profit opportunity. It's get the job done and get your property back together, and work with a company like Paul Davis Restoration. We're full service. Let us take care of your loss, and we'll move this project forward and get it done.
I love that. Mark, we got one more question, but I did want to call attention to the ticker at the bottom of the screen. Paul Davis Restoration of the Triad East is a full-service commercial and residential property restoration company, experts in fire, water, and storm damage repair. They handle the entire job, from emergency response mitigation through contents restoration and full roof to foundation. I missed the rest of it because it's scrolling and I lost the end of it. But if you need to get a hold of Mark or Tom or anybody at the Triad East location, keep an eye on that ticker at the bottom. It's kind of a long one, and the phone number is there, right? We can call you, visit the website.
Yeah, okay. And we're easy to find on the internet.
Perfect. Yeah, search. Now, I mean, yeah, and I kind of led with that too. Paul Davis Restoration is, a very large company with lots of branches. I'm assuming Triad East means there is a Triad West.
There's a they call the Piedmont and the mountains west, or they go from sort of like Forsyth County all the way out towards Boone.
Got it. Okay, there it is. Triad-east.pauldavis.com. There it is. All right, awesome. Mark, I really appreciate you being on today. I've just got one more final question before we wrap up here. So looking ahead, moving forward, how is Paul Davis Restoration? You kind of talked about this with technology. So maybe go a little deeper into that if you need to. How is Paul Davis Restoration innovating to stay at the forefront of the industry while maintaining the personal touch that matters to customers?
Sure. What we've been doing, we have a corporate network of Paul Davis offices. There are about 350 Paul Davis offices in the U.S. and Canada, to put it in perspective. So we're large, and that offers a lot of advantages to insurance carriers, right? Because we can standardize on a service level agreement. So we're working with, right now, we have a direct repair program with 8 of the top 10 U.S. insurance carriers, U.S. and Canada, mainly U.S. insurance carriers. And so what that means is that we're able to work closely with the insurance carrier on estimating guidelines on what they want to pay for and don't pay for. We're already trained and know that. We can get the job started faster and completed faster, squeeze the cycle time down, and which reduces costs for the insurance carrier and ultimately for the homeowners who have to pay the premium on the policies, right? Mm-hmm. So that's been going on for a while, and so as a network we're growing. So so that's on the squeeze the cost down. It's one of the main things that we're trying to do. So we're trying to become not just the best property restoration company in the United States, but the best and largest and most well-known property restoration company in the United States. So we're on a path toward that. And but here again, so that's kind of where the main corporate, or let's say the overall network's thrust is, and the more reach we have, the more ability we have to touch people in their time of need and provide service that, the more fulfilling it is for us and the better our business is. And so we, once again, it comes back also then to our vision. And so we're doing all of that, right? We're growing and the carriers are partnering directly with us because of the work that we're doing and because of our success in, helping them bring their costs down. But our focus still always remains on the customer, providing extraordinary care while serving people in their time of need. And so we talk about that every day. We focus on that every day. And then when we get out on the job, we try to really do what we're trained to do and execute in the field.
Fantastic. Mark, I love those. I love the concept. I think you said about providing extraordinary care to people in their time of need. I mean, that's something that's really good. It's a good tagline for sure. But I'm a big believer, especially in dealer networks. I work with a quasi franchise in the retail space. And one of the things that I always tell people, because they're always afraid of competition from other dealers that are using the same brand name, I'm like, look, a rising tide lifts all ships. You'll win some, you'll lose some, but everybody's going to have business. And there's more business, the more we can get the brand name to be elevated, right? Because then more people are just familiar with that name, and name recognition goes a long way in my world. So I really do love how it sounds like you guys have a really well thought out strategy and plan for moving forward. And that's important to hear as well. So,
yeah. And it is about brand, and it's about providing great service to our insurance partners.
Yeah.
And then staying true to our vision.
Awesome. That's a good trilateral move right there. Mark, I really appreciate you obviously, if you guys want to get a hold of Mark, you can. And look forward to talking to you again soon, my friend. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, that was awesome. Yeah, Paul Davis Restoration, big name, started family owned, and has just continued to grow since the 60s. And I think that's very, very cool. And I love that extraordinary care to people in their time of need. I think we should all kind of try to provide that, right, in our businesses. I think that's just really important. It's a good core foundation to have in business. And I like that Paul Davis Restoration has that ingrained into their business. So I did promise you at the beginning of the episode, if you would like to become a guest on a future episode of Meet the Experts, that I would tell you how. But first, I do need to say my plug here that Meet the Experts is powered by Journey Builder, your all-in-one marketing software solution. It's more than marketing. It's business processes, CRM, and marketing. Manage your customer relationships, book appointments seamlessly, execute your entire strategy with just one login. I kid you not. A lot of business owners have 1,400 logins. 1,400, that's an actual number. 1,400 logins of all the different logins they need to do everything they need to do. We keep it all under one roof, and we can even manage it for you. Let's say with you and for you. But anyway, so check out getjourneybuilder.com. And if you want to be a guest on a future episode of Meet the Experts, just head over to www.meettheexpertspodcast.com. Broke my own rule there. It's the anti-podcast, but meettheexpertspodcast.com. Read through it, fill out the form. You'll book a sound check, which is just a quick get together. It's not your actual recording. We'll chat. We'll learn about your business. We'll talk about the process of the show, and then we will schedule your recording. So yeah, all at that good cost of free, $0. All right. One last little bit before I hit the end recording button. I hope you all have a wonderful day wherever you are. And before you go to sleep tonight, try to say or do something nice for somebody else. That's it. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.